Welcome to the City of Mesa Planning and Zoning Board meeting. We appreciate your interest in the future development of our community and welcome your comments. At this time, we ask you to turn off or select the vibrate option on your mobile devices. Today's agenda includes a consent agenda. These items will be read into the record and acted on in one motion. If you would like to speak on any of these items, please fill out a blue card located in the back of the room and bring it to the front. The items will then be removed from the consent agenda and voted on individually. Each case will be introduced by city staff, then the applicant, followed by public comments. The Planning and Zoning Board makes recommendations to the City Council and votes on each case. City Council meetings are held twice a month at 5:45 p.m. in the council chambers. Visit mesaaz.gov to view their meeting schedule. All planning and zoning meetings are broadcast live and rebroadcast on Mesa Channel 11. To view the programming schedule, visit mesachannel11.com.
Welcome to today's Planning and Zoning Board meeting. It is Wednesday, June 15th. The first item on our agenda is going to be to take action on the consent agenda items. So if the item is on the consent agenda and you wish to speak about it, we're going to need the blue card right away. Is staff, do they want to pull off 6A? Okay, we're going to pull off 6A from the consent agenda. If I have no more blue cards, then I'm going to ask Michelle to go ahead and read the consent agenda. 3B and 4B have been removed.
Item 2A is approval of the minutes from the May 17th and 18th, 2016 study sessions and regular hearing. Item 3A is case Z16028, District 4, 1131 South Stapley Drive on approximately 1.26 acres. This is a site plan review to allow for the development of a drive-through restaurant, and the staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 4A is case Z16024, District 6, 5253 South Saranac, on approximately 3.26 acres. This is a rezoning from LI and LC to LIAF BIZ overlay and a site plan review to allow for the development of an office building. The staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 4C is KZ 16027, District 5, the 9,000 block of East Brown Road on approximately 9.5 acres. This is a rezoning from LC on 6 acres approximately and RS 43 on approximately 3.5 acres to RM2 PAD. This is a site plan review and a special use permit to allow for the development of a transitional senior living facility, and the recommendation from staff is approval with conditions. And item 5A is the Spectrum Retirement Development Preliminary Plat. This is a companion case to Z16027, and the recommendation from staff is approval with conditions.
Board, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Please vote. Consent agenda passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda, relative to 3B and 4B, their companion cases. 3B is case number Z16025 in District 6, the 6,400 to 6,500 blocks of South Mountain Road, located north of Pecos Road and west of Mountain Road, 3.49 acres, site plan review. This request will allow development of a parking area and outside storage associated with the existing Fujifilm electronic materials facility at 6550 South Mountain Road. First, I'd like the staff to give me a quick overview on this. Good? Would you like to?
Yes. Chair, I'm wondering if you want to go ahead and read in 4B.
I shall. Okay.
And they are different, and we don't want to get them confused, but I think a lot of discussion is going to overlap. So I'm just thinking it might be easier to read both in. Is that okay with the applicant? Okay.
4B is Z16026 in District 6, same location, but it's 5.82 acres, rezoning from GIAF CUP to HIAF. This request will allow hazardous materials usage on this portion of the property associated with the existing Fujifilm electronics materials facility at 6550 South Mountain Road. Okay, now maybe staff could give us an overview, quick overview.
Chairman and member of the board, the site plan one will address that Z16-05 first. This is a 3.49 acres of, as you mentioned, it's a parking lot for storage and isotainers and empty semis and all those that related to their existing business to the south, which is the Fuji electronic materials facilities. And currently they already have GI industrial zoning already, so they just don't have the HI. In fact, in those days, we never had an HI, so that's why in our books we have an HI now to deal with heavy industrial facilities. So we don't have an issue as simply as it's a parking lot with screen walls along Mountain Road, nicely done with wrought iron and fabric backing to screen the view. Towards the north property line, we have a solid wall with pilasters to break the long view. That's the area along the future Maricopa 24 freeway. So, and you have like a site light or parking lot lights, which will be only 25 feet height maximum. That's all the zoning ordinance allows. So that is as simple as that, and it's a general plan that allows for that. It's an employment district, so staff doesn't have any major issue. We dealt with the applicant about the development standard, the site plans and all, and so we recommend approval with conditions.
What's the forecast for when that freeway is actually going to be delivered? 20 years?
Nobody could tell me. I asked the ADOT, the city staff that's working with ADOT. They didn't predict any, but it's going through the process of planning and taking the easements and all that. So it is in the process, but they couldn't predict any date of construction.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any other questions for staff at this time?
That freeway route, is that pretty much set, or could that be changed at all in the future? Do you know? I'm not sure.
I can't answer that, but it's you could almost see that if you go towards west, that the alignment is already there up to the Ellsworth Road.
No, but I mean the route of the actual freeway, it will go
further east.
It's already been set, is that correct?
Chair, Board Member Arkita, yes, the basic route is set. It's been agreed to for a long time. The specific dimensions, design standards, they're pretty well known, but they're still doing that final design. It could potentially shift a little bit, but based on best knowledge of where that freeway will be, the applicant is proposing their rezoning and the site plan to be all south of that proposed freeway.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, I guess my next question is for the applicant. Would you prefer to hear the comments and then make a presentation, or the other way around?
Chair, Reese Anderson, by the way, is 1744 South Elvis, number 217, on behalf of Fuji. Let me answer a couple questions on the freeway. Then I think it would be best if we let neighbors comment and we come back and address specific issues. Would that be okay with the chair and members of the board? As far as the freeway goes, our architects and our design team from Fuji contacted ADOT. We met with them. We got the precise location of where they're going to be on our property, and that's mapped out. You see that in your exhibits. We were also told that the freeway is planned for a very narrow range of 4 to 20 years from now. That's sarcasm, I'm sorry. And then, of course, I was told that ADOT started to acquire land to the west of us. So all that to me is evidence it's going right in this area. So that answers that question, I think, Board Member Aikita. With that, let me sit back down and we'll invite others up and then we can go from there. Is that okay?
That'd be
Chair?
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask we have 3 speakers on this issue. I'm going to ask that each come up. You've got 3 minutes. First, state your name and your address, and the first person is Brent Hickey.
Good afternoon, members of the Planning and Development Board. I'm Brent Hickey, 1256 West Chandler Boulevard in Chandler. I represent about 300 acres of landowners just to the north of this. And let me just start off by saying, I'm not here to slow Fuji down or to prevent them from doing what they need to do there. We've been brought into this process at a very late date, and I just think that there's some breathing room that we all need to take and kind of step back a little bit and examine what this really is. I noticed the staff report has said that there were no neighbors or no neighborhoods or HOAs within 1 mile. AG Homes has an HOA within 0.8 of a mile of here, and there are existing residential homes within 0.4 to 0.7 of a mile from here. So I think there's just a little bit more notice that needs to go on before we move forward with this. My concern is a couple of things. This has been characterized as an isotainer parking lot, and really what it is, it's a chemical stockpile. Fuji had told us that there could be up to 45 of these isotainers that are full, being tested, and awaiting transport. That's about 285,000 gallons of this material. They did provide us the manufacturer data safety sheets, and so I reviewed those. I've summarized them, and I'd like to pass them out if I may, and just...
Sure.
And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just go over a few of the ones that that really stuck out to me as to what this chemical is. It's toxic in contact with the skin. It's a confirmed animal carcinogen. The vapors may form explosive mixtures with air. It warns to keep people away and upwind of any spill or leak. It warns that heavy vapors can overcome a considerable distance up to a source of ignition. It warns that containers still remain hazardous when empty. And probably the two most important ones is there's a warning that this product contains chemicals known to the state of California to cause cancer, as well as to cause birth defects and other reproductive harm. So having said that, what my concern really is the location of where these isotainers are. We don't want to stop Fuji, but we think they have some alternatives, some alternative locations to put this stuff. And the reason that the location that they've identified is not one that I'm a fan of is it's right up against the Future Freeway. And while these isotainers, they do have some very impressive refrigeration and insulation qualities, what they don't protect against is an external ignition source, like a freeway shooter or somebody that wanted to make them explode, pulling right over on the freeway, throwing something over. And then you've got 285,000 gallons of this stuff going up that's 0.8 of a mile from an existing HOA and other neighbors. So to me, I see it as a health, safety, and welfare concern. And what I've offered to Mr. Anderson is I'll meet with them and we can come up with some alternatives as to where this could go. One thing I noted is they have a south parking lot, so it's more internal to their site. They could move them down there. They could continue to pave what they're out there clearing and grubbing today and turn that into a new employee parking lot or whatever. So then you'd have safe parking up against a future freeway, and they would internalize these operations. Another alternative is I was involved in presenting another piece of property to them that is directly west of where they store their existing 14 isotainers. They've already got a lined pond there. They've got a water source, a well, and a storage facility. So just to go directly west to those 14 isotainers, that's another alternative for them. Or if they want to put it here, then enclose it. Prevent the external sources from getting to it. Put it in a masonry building with some kind of exhaust system on it and a way to seal that building in the event of a spill or a leak or something like that. So I guess to sum up my comments, I'm here to request that we continue this, that I be available and be allowed to work with them a little bit and try and come up with something that works for them. Well, I'm not here to try and stop them. We want them to go forward. We understand how important Fuji is as an employer in the city of Mesa, and I understand how important the chemicals that they're producing, where they go, that also help this community. So that's not the goal. We just want to do it in a way that all the constituents in the city of Mesa are also protected in the event of a worst-case scenario.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is David Jarvis. Please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'm David Jarvis, 2251 North 32nd Street, number 30 in Mesa. And the purpose for my 3 minutes here is that I've assembled over a number of years property up and down Signal Butte from where the 24 is going to be aligned down to Pecos Road on both sides of the property. So we're not only a contiguous neighbor of Fuji, but we're also, surrounding neighbor. And I have a high regard for Fuji. I want them to be successful there because it'll help my property values. The only concern I have is similar to Brent's, and that is I just want to make sure when it's time for me to develop my land that the zoning and the uses are compatible with what I envision the city wants to see there, which we're going to have the Diamond Interchange connection to the 24 with the traffic coming south from Queen Creek. And they're anticipating 30 to 40,000 cars a day going to that intersection because it'll be a reliever of the Ellsworth and the Ironwood highways now coming out of the South Valley. So our biggest concern right now is if we want to develop a multi-use, multi-purpose, development we have about 60, 70 acres there along that corridor. Will we be able to do that without having pushback because of the heavy industrial uses and the chemicals and et cetera that are going to be in an open space area? So I'm expressing that concern and want to have that considered as we move forward in approving this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. The last card that I have is, I'm not going to be able to pronounce it, Suzanne, which is my name, Barber, I'm lost. I got the B right. Please state your name and your address.
Good afternoon. My name is Susan Bavolick, Bawolek, and I live at 2200 West Sagebrush Court, Chandler, Arizona. I am one of the landowners along Mountain Road. In fact, about 100% of my property will be taken from the freeway, so I'm directly west of Fuji. And my concern is regarding the freeway. There were some questions raised earlier about what the state is doing with the freeway, and that is my concern. So at this point, I just wanted to note that if the state is moving along with plans and Fuji goes ahead and puts these chemical containers close to the freeway, will it necessitate on the state's part to go back and redo their plans again, since we don't know what their plans are? And that seemed to me to raise quite a few questions. Otherwise, again, like everyone else, Fuji's a great neighbor, has been there as long as we've owned the land, and I continue to support Mesa and Fuji's efforts to create business and opportunities in Mesa. But I do share the same concerns about the freeway and the hazardous materials close to a potential freeway and homes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Now, if we could have the applicant follow up, please. One thing I did want to ask staff real quick. Did you verify the notification that was done to neighbors and the HOAs in the area?
Yeah, they have done twice, like the neighborhood notification. Once they had a neighborhood meetings. I'm sure applicant will go into detail that, but they had a neighborhood meeting and we have received the documentation. There was May 26th, that meeting was held, and some of the people that were present, I think here, they were present also on that meeting, and they raised their concern also. So
all the owners required to be noticed were noticed?
Right.
Perfect.
And also that 500 feet notification was done.
Thank you.
Chair Johnson again, Reese Anderson. To understand, sometimes words in the English language just have a little different nuances. So when somebody says there's a homeowners association in the area, you really have to be a registered neighborhood to get that notice through the City of Mesa Neighborhood Outreach Office. So I just want to affirm that what the applicant did here, what the architects and Fuji did was proper. They followed all the proper protocols. The proper distances were followed. The people were noticed properly. And they're here today, as you can see. Board members, let me real quickly, I'm going to just very quickly run through, and I hope this presentation is now on your screen. I think I have it set correctly. If not, I will ask for IT help to come and It looks like it's loaded properly here. So real quickly, I want to just make sure we're all on the same page and understand. Case 25, Z1625, is a site plan only case. That is just, we're already zoned. This property we're talking about is Fuji owns 19 acres to the north of its existing plant. We're taking 5.82 of it now, and we're site planning it, and that's case 25, and case 26 is the rezoning. So today, and just to jump ahead to answer Mr. Jarvis's question, we're already general industrial with a council use permit. That is essentially HI. That's the category we have on the site now. So when he asks questions such as, is Fuji's expansion going to change the character of what Fuji's doing out there today? The answer is simply no. In the buildup for this parking lot for isotainers, we've hired about 100 people. We've ramped up production. And the schedule for Fuji is absolutely critical here because they are scheduled to take the first isotainers. Let me show you a picture. I'm going to jump ahead quite a bit here. And we can... And let me stop here on this slide. You can kind of see real quickly. Here's all of our industrial users. You can see the zoning around us. Even to the north of the freeway, you've got general industrial, light industrial. The area that's zoned ag, right, is in the general plan for industrial.
We would back up to the freeway. That's kind of what I was wondering about. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, not a problem. And Board Member Aikita, the question that I think the good woman from, I'm going to mispronounce it, Bulwark, Susan, we'll just refer to her as Miss Susan, if that's okay with you, ma'am. She says thank you. So Miss Susan's question is our use here going to require ADOT to change its plan? I don't believe the answer is yes. I mean, we've met with ADOT. We've had them out on site. They provided the specific, they know what we're doing. That's not to say they approve. ADOT doesn't comment on uses. What they do comment upon and what they say that they're okay with is this site plan because it's not affecting their right-of-way. Okay? This exhibit here can show you a little bit more of what the area in gray is ADOT, and you can see that unique shape on the right side of your screen, which would be the east, close to Mountain Road. The reason that's angled is because Mountain Road will be an overpass over the 24. So that's just, you see the base of the mound getting wider as it gets taller. Okay. And I know I'm going quickly. I will go back to any specific question that you might have. Here's an interesting question. Here's the chemical we're talking about. It's called cyclohexanone. You might say, Reese, what the heck is cyclohexanone? Well, in my research of it, and I've talked to the Fuji people and looked at it myself, cyclohexanone is most commonly used in the creation of nylon. And how many nylon products do you have at your home? Quite a bit. Here, Fuji's producing it for the semiconductor industry. And if you know a little bit about how semiconductors are made, very thin layers are put on wafers to make all of those electronic circuits. This is a solvent used by the semiconductor industry. And that's what, and it has to be very pure. So you and I, when we talk about water purification, we talk about parts per million. Fuji talks about parts per trillion when they're talking about how clean and pure this product is. And that goes back to that 70 degrees we're talking about. This is what I wanted to show you. This is the current container Fuji uses. It's a blue plastic tote, about 200 gallons. This is an isotainer on site today. This is the loading area of the site. It's up in the northwest side. You can see it's much larger, much sturdier built, much safer. To use the cliche, this is the better mousetrap. And this is the bulk quantity that our customers are asking for as they're ramping up their semiconductor production. And we're scheduled to take the new and improved versions of these on our site September 21st. So starting construction now, critical for us. In fact, the City of Mesa planning, or the Building Safety Department, is ready to issue the permits for the construction of this parking lot, subject to your approval of the site plan today. Point being, timing is critical. The other point is that all the City of Mesa departments have looked at this carefully. They've looked at not only the site plan, but also what's going to be stored on it. And they've considered it safe. Let me answer the question real quick about why would we put it here rather than somewhere else. In talking with Fuji and talking with Mr. Hickey, There was a lot of analysis done by Fuji as to why it wouldn't go south side, west side, etc. Imagine yourself, a property owner here, wanting to expand your house, and you own the property. Doesn't it make the most economic sense to just expand on your own property rather than buying something next door? So if all other factors are the same, you just use your own property. And that's what we've done here. Also, when Fuji looks at its ease of loading from this facility that's on your screen here to the parking lot, etc., they're the people that know their business the best. I think we should defer to them on where it should go. And when all of the other people that have looked at it to determine whether it's safe or not have signed off, to me the case is pretty simple. Okay? Here's the other thing that I want to just share with you real quick is in the written materials you've heard a lot about Flashpoint, and we talked a little bit about the study session. Here's a quick comparison so you just get an idea of really how safe this material is. Gasoline, we all deal with it every day, loaded in our car, lawnmowers, etc. Flashpoint of that is minus 45 degrees Fahrenheit. If you look at the bottom of that chart, cyclohexanon, 111. Okay? What's the auto ignition temperature? That's the temperature it would just ignite on its own. Again, gasoline, 536. This one, cyclohexanon, 788. So again, we're not talking about an unsafe, unstable material here. In fact, it's a lot safer than what you and I have stored in our garage now. Okay? And as far as comments about this being known to the state of California to cause cancer, my goodness, I pulled out a faucet the other day, and the lead weight on the pull-out thing, there's a sticker on it that said this is known to the state of California to cause cancer. Do I not drink water that came through that tap? No, it's because just the lead weight's on there. My point is that if you look closely at the material safety data sheet, what it says is it's not known to cause any carcinogens to humans, and that's right there in the materials. I've probably gone too much into the weeds, board members here. I think it's absolutely clear that the general plan calls for this area to be employment. And this is an employment. This is a valued, very important industry. They've been there a long time. This area is also part of the Gateway Strategic Plan. And let me show you that map real quick. And then I'll answer questions the board may have. Again, here's the general plan. Right here, you see it in purple, smack in the middle of what is called the employment character area. This is the Gateway Economic Development Activity Area. You can see Fuji's right there in it. There's also a sub-plan, or what's called the Gateway Strategic Development Plan. This is the framework map. Many of you are familiar with it from your years of service in Mesa. And look where Fuji's at there. They're right in the Logistics and Commerce District. When you look at the definition of that, this is what it says, and I want to point you to these two bolded and underlined sentences. The first one, desired uses. What does it say? Manufacturing, large warehouses, planned employment parks, similar uses. That's Fuji. Look at the last one. Greater intensity and density will be encouraged for development approaching the northern boundary of this area as it approaches the freeway. There's no doubt in my mind that what Mesa wants here, what it needs here, and what we should support here is this exact type of expansion for Fuji. Well, I've probably gone too far. Was there any questions that I might have missed? With me today, if I could, is just Scott Clam, the site director for Fuji, Mike Barker, the engineering and maintenance manager, Scott Beatty, the product manager, also Georgiana Lagan, who's the environmental health and safety, and then our architects, Brian Johns and Jared Malone. All of us are available to answer any questions you may have. We're before you with support from planning, from economic development, and we would urge your support on both cases, of course, with the modified stipulations you received from staff. Any questions, Madam Chair?
I did have one question. How long have they been there, and has there been any accident history there?
So I'm going to ask Scott Clam just to come up and join me. And the answer to your second question is no, there hasn't been any. And how long have you been there?
Scott Clam. I'm the site director at the Fujifilm manufacturing facility. We've been there since 1996, handling chemicals of very similar compatibility.
No OSHA violations or problems like that? Or?
No OSHA violations. We've had OSHA out. They were out just actually a few months ago, did an inspection. EPA was out 3 days ago to do an inspection. So
it's a good track record.
Yeah, very good track record.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Any questions, board?
Yes.
Reese, could you talk a little bit about why you can't enclose that area?
So in Enclosing the whole area, I mean, that would be a huge expense. It's simply just not needed. These containers are already being stored on the property now. We already have some now. The site where we're storing them is not big enough. We need to be able to move them further north. I also want to clarify that in phase one, we're only planning 25 of these would ever be full at one time. But taking the entire area and just closing it in just doesn't make sense when it's not necessary. Again, you could build, I guess we could say we could build incredibly large nuclear Palo Verde type structures for everything that's out there that had the slightest, but we just don't do it. The people that have looked at this just determined it's not necessary. I think we would have heard those comments from the Mesa building safety people if it was necessary.
I would just comment, just because Mr. Hickey was talking about, he was thinking that could be an alternative that would address some of his concerns with security and access. Maybe you could just talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. The concern, as I understand it from Mr. Hickey, is that if this is next to a future freeway, and then again, in the next, let's just call it 5 to 20 years, a freeway's there, that someone could come along the freeway and cause a lot of mischief here. To me, I can envision all sorts of doomsday scenarios for any type of facility anywhere. And last Sunday in Orlando proved that, didn't it? So we can envision these worst-case scenarios for anything, and we take reasonable steps to secure our facilities. Fuji's done that. They've proved that they can do it. I also don't see that it's a realistic possibility when I fully anticipate the freeway being built here with a large sound wall. So now you're scaling, I mean, how tall is a sound wall? At least 14, 15 feet, sometimes 20. So I just don't see it as a realistic possibility. Plus, let's say that I move it west, I move it south. In reality, nobody would ever, if someone wanted to get to it and they were organized and financed enough, they would get to it, right? We just can't stop everything. So we ask ourselves now in the society we live in, we do the best with what we know at the time that we're there. And Fuji's doing that, and they've done that. So I just don't think that moving it somewhere else improves the safety at all, and it causes a whole lot of unnecessary costs that just don't work. For example, put in employee parking up there. It's one of the things, hey, just put your employees, it just doesn't function well as the way the plant's set up. They've spent a lot of time now, or since 96, building the plant so that employees park on the east, they enter the building in the middle, and then distribute to their different parts. To move it up there would be a major reroute of everything that's there. It's just unnecessary, is the bottom line.
Okay. Any other questions, board? Nope. Staff, you there? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion? You're good? Sure.
Could you just describe a little bit about the internal review, just regard to the environmental and public health and safety concerns, just because of the folks that are here that are concerned about that sort of thing, that they can understand that it was reviewed carefully, and then there's people that were qualified to review that sort of project?
Anytime a typical planning and zoning case comes in, it goes through our development services, engineering development. They usually route it through engineering, fire, and all the related solid waste. So I specifically only talked about transportation because I wanted to make sure ADOT, the city staff that is working with the ADOT, and he mentioned to me that, yes, it's in their book, it's in the design and all that, and ADOT is aware of it. And we got documentation also from ADOT that they are. Beside that, those are too technical for me, so I haven't called anybody about environmental and other stuff.
Chair and Board Member Dalkey, in addition to that, as mentioned by Mr. Anderson, they have already also applied for the building permit process. And a part of that, we do have the building safety folks, the fire plan reviewers and so forth that are taking a look at all these things. They have not brought up any concerns.
We also have a letter from Economic Development supporting this, I should mention also. Okay, well, it's up to the board. Do I have a motion? If there's no further discussion.
We're moving on item 3B, is that correct?
3B and 4B.
4B. Are we going to put them together or what?
It can be put together
Can we put that together?
if it's votes the right way, I guess.
Right, if there's, right, they could be, because they could have been on the consent agenda together. Again,
Just one other
ensure reference
comment,
to the revised conditions.
I'm sorry. Just one other, thank you. Just one other comment. Yesterday I had some concerns about the dangers of the chemicals that will be stored there, but after looking at the map, and actually that's probably a good place to put it, because if you put those isotainers at any other location, then you're affecting other property and other property owners. And if it's against the freeway, which it looks like it will be, it's probably a good place to put it, aside from the aesthetics, of course. And then you have the freeway that'll eventually come through and buffer some of the properties to the north. And the building and the company itself would probably buffer, the isotainers there. So, I mean, it's probably the best place to put it, in my opinion. So that's the only comment I would have on, on this case.
It's starting to sound like a motion.
All right, well, I'll move it then. Okay, Ms. Chair, I'm going to move that we approve Fuji's Electronic Materials case number Z16-025 for their site plan review and also their zoning rechange from LI and LC to LIAF-BIZ, along with, as written in the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Board Member Akita, it looks like you're looking at 4A, 4B, would have the correct zoning districts from GIAF, CUP to HIAF would be the request. And with the site plans with the revised conditions that you were provided yesterday.
So it's not for the site plan then, is that correct?
For the site plan with revised conditions provided yesterday.
This, and revised conditions. This, and then with revised conditions.
Okay. Okay, I'll try it again. Mr. Chair, I'm going to move that we approve Fuji's case Z16-026 and 16-026, along with the
And 25.
and 25 and 26, along with the conditions of approval. Will that do that?
In District 6 with revised conditions?
With the revised conditions.
It's his motion, though. Do you have a second?
Oh, just a second.
I second that. Yeah, the approval of case Z16-025 for District 6, as well as Z16-026 District 6 for the rezoning of the GIAF CUP to the HI-AF zone. Yeah, I second that.
Okay, all in favor, please vote. It passes unanimous. Thank you all for coming for this. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to review, discuss, and make a recommendation to the City Council regarding the following proposed amendment to the Mesa City Code. Amendments to the Mesa City Code Title 11, the zoning ordinance, to add a new zoning district entitled EO, Employment Opportunity District, and amend section of the Mesa zoning ordinance related to enabling the use and administration of the EO zoning district. Staff recommendation on this is approval with conditions, and I believe we have a staff presentation.
Yes, we do. I'm over here. Hi, Chair. Members of the board, this is a new zoning district. It would actually be a new chapter in the Mesa zoning ordinance, Chapter 14 for the Employment Opportunity District. And really it was a collaboration of working, the planning department working with economic development, which I have J.D. Beatty here from Economic Development, in case you have any questions of them. They had more requests for shovel-ready entitlement in place for large employment type uses. And this was really developed to help them to create that carrot, that incentive for those type of uses to come into the city of Mesa. So working with them, we were looking at something that would shorten that entitlement process and create those employment hubs. And of course, as you know, we approved the Elliott Road Technology Corridor with the hopes of putting these same things into place. But some of the lessons learned is that the property owners had to go back to City Council for approval of a development agreement. So it didn't quite shorten that entitlement process that we were hoping for. So with this new zoning district, Chapter 14, it would be typically staff-initiated, again, planning staff working with economic development, a minimum of 160 acres, utilizing the employment and mixed-use employment areas identified in the Mesa general plan. And, of course, the land uses would need to comply with city council policies and plans. It would have an employment opportunity development plan that would come in with that. And it could be applied directly or as a floating zone. And the floating zone would allow the property owners to develop under the current zoning until the time that they administratively opt in. So the floating zone is actually a two-step process. Step one would be the typical public hearing process. Again, staff initiated, coming in, developing that, the development plan, working with economic development, and establishing those boundaries and putting in place that floating zone. So that would be the typical 6-month process that we would have through planning and zoning through city council. So then the floating zone would be in place, and that gives the economic development department kind of a tool to go out and entice the large employment users, saying we have these areas of the city, that 160 acres, that we could accommodate your employment use without a public hearing. It would be maybe a few-week process in order to opt in and also get the administrative site plan approval. The incentives, again, is to just really invite those identified high-end employment-generating uses. The administrative opt-in actually changes the zoning designation, and it streamlines an entitlement process through site plan approval. The next steps, of course, is just to update the amendment based on any changes that or comments that you have, and then final consideration, hopefully adoption through City Council. With that, if you have any questions of me or of JD, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks. I think what we talked about in study session yesterday is there's no other cities in our areas that has this tool in their toolbox.
Chair Johnson, that's true. There aren't any other cities that we know of that have put this in place.
Okay, that's great. Any questions for staff? Any discussion? Any motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the amendment to Mesa City Code Title 11, the zoning ordinance, to add a new zoning district entitled EO, an Employment Opportunity District, and amend sections of the Mesa zoning ordinance related to enabling the use and administration of the EO zoning district.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Please vote. Passes unanimous. Thank you. Do we have any other business?
Well, as a matter of fact, Madam Chair, we do have one other item of maybe business is an overstatement, but just an item of interest to cover. Many people out there in the audience may not realize that this is going to be your last meeting. You've been here for 6 years. Yep. We appreciate your service to the City of Mesa over the last 6 years. And so in honor of that, I thought a little life in review of a Planning and Zoning Board member for 6 years was appropriate.
Now, what was that?
Your life in review here.
Oh, no.
For the last 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Your first meeting was July 21st of 2010, 6 years ago. Remember who was the chair at that time?
It was not Vince. It was, what's his name? He's got the dream catcher business.
Yeah. Mr. Carter.
Carter, Randy.
Randy was chair. Beth Coons, Vince DeBella, Chell Roberts, Brad Arnett, Lisa Hudson, and yourself. They were the members of that time. Your first meeting lasted for about an hour and a half. You covered a freeway landmark sign where you had concerns about the message board on the sign, but also you had your first opportunity to hear about a zoning text change at that meeting. It's interesting that you end with that too. Yeah. And you also got to listen to Mr. Sheffield give an update on the overall zoning code update.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
many,
how you got
many
your start.
times with Gordon.
So it doesn't really change much. We're still changing the zoning code. During your tenure here on the board, you helped us to adopt the new zoning code. The board acted on that April 2011. You helped adopt the Central Maine Plan. The board acted on that in December of 2011. The form-based code in April of 2012, and the new general plan in May of 2014. A lot of important documents
that was
for the
a lot.
city. You were here part of that, and we appreciate it. Some of the cases that came in that you helped to review over that time, the development unit plan and site plan for First Solar / Apple in 2011, an overlay zone for Falcon Field that helps it in its development back in 2011. The reviews for Riverview Park and the Cub Stadium back in 2011, 2012. The first plats for Eastmark in 2012. Approval of the Cadence Community Plan in 2012. And Mulberry Development in 2014. During your time on the board, we've approved most of Mountain Bridge plats. Most of that's taken place during this time. And numerous other site plans and plats for large and small projects across the city. In 2014, you were elected as vice chair with Vince DeBella as chair. Mm-hmm. Then he was kind enough to miss his first meeting as chair.
Yeah, that was not nice.
That was your first opportunity to actually chair.
And we had no microphones, and we had nowhere to do anything.
You winged it well then, and you've done a good job ever since. Your longest meeting that you've had, I'm sure you remember it well, February 2014. The rezone at Albany and 56th for the residential facility that took over the golf course.
Oh, yeah.
That was three and a half hours for that particular meeting.
I kind of forgot about that. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
What's my shortest, though?
Your shortest meetings?
About 2 months ago.
4 minutes. Your shortest meeting. It's happened twice.
That was probably my first day, by the way, I think.
Actually, once with you as chair, and one other time before that. But unfortunately, after your first meeting as chair, which was a short meeting, I think it was a 5 or 6 minute meeting, it wasn't your shortest, it came later. But we had more than hour-long meetings for most of the rest of your tenure.
Yeah.
But then the last couple of meetings, again, have been short, with just 4 and 5 minutes. So been able to take control again. Sorry we couldn't go out on a short note here today, but you've done an excellent job, and we appreciate that. We have a token here of our appreciation.
Thank you very much.
And we also have some refreshments downstairs that everyone's invited to join in.
Very nice. I've got to thank the staff, too, for all the support and all the help and getting me through all of this. Really appreciate it. It's a great city, great staff. Thank you. Now, do we adjourn the meeting? May I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you very much.